Want to know what the movers and shakers of New Hampshire's performing arts are thinking? Welcome to New Hampshire Unscripted with your host, Ray Dudley.
Hello.
Brother, what's happening?
Oh, you know, living my best life, doing as good as I can with all things considered.
Yeah. You're a busy guy.
Yeah, a little bit, and it's a busy time of year.
Yeah. Listen, I really appreciate you just even slotting me in here.
Yeah, no worries. I just actually wrapped up interviewing a music director for my next show. So, and then fortunately, I don't have anything I actually have to teach tomorrow. So, you know, my evening's free to do whatever I want because I've got my improv class and my Shakespeare class, and it's both just in-class exercises. So my evening's all set. I don't have to do any lesson planning. Just thankful for that.
Well, you've just answered every question I had, so.
All right, there we go.
So Dan,
Yeah.
I'm intrigued about Q0.
Yeah.
And your background and all of that. So let's start at the beginning. I went out and I looked at all the information I could find, and looks like you started around 2013, first show 2014. So give me a little bit of your background and maybe introduce yourself to what you are right now, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, Dan Pelletier. I didn't really start getting into theater until high school, but then it was one of the things I fell in love with. And then when I went to college, I went to the University of New Hampshire. I was kind of between several different majors that all had nothing to do with each other. Political science, computer science, and theater. And the theater one out, it was the place where I felt most at home and really felt my fellow theater majors just, were the type of people I wanted to be around. And really I felt like I was truly accomplishing things when I was in the theater. Like when I was in my computer science class and for our final project, we made Tetris. I didn't feel like I accomplished something. I just felt like I didn't want to look at Tetris ever again because it was just work. Whereas like theater is to me, it's a lot of work, but it was just very rewarding and getting to see those immediate results. So yeah, I graduated in 2013 and immediately I wanted to direct. It was like, that's my number one thing I like to do. I mean, I can act, I can write, I can teach, I can do everything, all these other things, but directing is what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to be like an intern somewhere or whatnot. And
can I pick your brain on that for a second?
Yeah, sure.
So where did that come from? Where did that hunger to direct as opposed to act, how did that foment?
So to me, directing a show is like solving a puzzle. You get this script and it's like, okay, how do I take this script that puts some clear images in my head, work with a group of actors and directors and designers and get the images that are in my head and that I get from this script and turn it into a piece of theater that people want to see and that it says what I think the script says. I love getting to work with the actors and coach them and find the nuances. And it really allows me to explore really, like what it means to be human, looking for the nuance and really, playing with different sorts of characters. I'm really drawn to shows that have, complex characters that, if you met this person, you might not agree with them, but then I got to get my actors to understand them. Like right now, one of my playwriting students is writing a piece about a mother and their child. Then the child is going through gender identity issues. They just don't know, they're a teenager. They don't know. They're trying to figure out who they are. And the mother's really struggling with that. And I'm, working with them to make sure that they're writing the mother as a person and not as like a Power Rangers villain where she's just very overbearing. And the student really gets that and like, yeah, I don't want this to be like a caricature. I want to have these things. So like, getting to work on things like that I just, it just being in like rehearsals is where I feel just most alive. And like when you have that moment of discovery, when the actor, when things finally come together and the magic starts happening, that to me is really, where the joy comes from. And then on the plus side, when I'm directing and not acting, I don't have to remember my lines.
Okay. All right.
But that's only part of it. I joke. I've gotten better at it, but and that's not the only reason. But yeah, the directing to me, again, it just comes back to that puzzle solving element. I like puzzles, but I don't like jigsaw puzzles because I can look at the box and I know what the answer is and I know what the puzzle's supposed to look like. Whereas with like a piece of theater, I don't know what the end result's going to look like when I start working on it. I have an idea of where I want it to go, but to get it there, there's just so many moving parts. And I get to work with so many interesting people and, create this shared experience.
So the role of a director for me has always appeared to be very daunting because you have to interface with so many different components. It's not just actors, right? You have to deal with the lighting people, the costume people, the set design people, the actors. There's so much involved there. Yeah. And to me, it's never been something I wanted to do.
It can be a lot. Again, it depends on the size of the project. Sometimes like with my stuff with like my high school. So I teach at a charter high school theater full time now. And like with like my projects at my high school, I am doing most, the sets and the lights. If I'm fortunate that I have like a student that excels in those areas, I might be able to hand that off to them. But, there's a lot of one-man rock banding versus, so when I am fortunate that I get to work with a full design team, you're right. Like it's a lot of people coordinating and so many different things. But I think a lot of it comes down to building relationships with the people that you're working with and trusting that they know what they're doing and being an effective communicator. To me, the director ultimately it should be a collaborative artist that takes, has their vision for the show, but also lets all these other artists bring to the table what they bring to the table, and then melding this all together so it fits in one cohesive, coherent world. So a lot of times, like if I'm talking to my costume designer, I'm like, okay, to me, these are, I give them like 6 or 7 adjectives per character. And I talk about the world we're building and whatnot. And I go, okay, this character needs to have this, and this, and I want their costume to express this, and they're, this class, answering questions. And then I send them on their merry way. And hopefully they'll come back with either sketches or mock-ups. And same thing with like my set. I'll talk to my set designer and go, okay, this is the space we're working with. These are some, visual elements that I need, or like, oh, I'm going to have this moment where I want this character to have status and elevation or whatever. But other than that, go sketch me 3 gut ideas, and then we'll talk about the pros and cons of each one. And then being able to, bounce ideas back and forth. But, it can be daunting. And sometimes, you do work with people that you can either clash with or whatnot. But I really find, the people that I enjoy working with most are those ones that it's kind of like improving, the ones that say yes and then build off of your idea. But I do want to give that freedom. From the other side, I've worked as a designer or an actor with, dictator directors that tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. And it's really, you're not an artist, you're a puppet. You're just doing what they see, but they, there's not enough hours in the day for them to do everything. Or they can't play every role in the show, and they just have a very clear vision. And again, that works for some people. And I know some people that are very successful doing that, but to me, that's not the type of environment I want to work in. So I think to be a successful director, from a logistics standpoint, it's, again, surrounding yourself with people you trust, being a clear and effective communicator, and then your time management. Like I have my iCal runs my life. It's color coded. I've got, I've got my personal calendar. I've got my work calendar. I've got my theater calendar. I've got all of my sports teams on there. So I can, remember to set the DVR. So I don't, if I have a rehearsal, And then I have a little notebook that's on it says plans for world domination, and that's where I make my my to-do lists every week. Because I find having a physical to-do list actually keeps me on track. I try to set multiple reminders, like I put it in my phone, I write it down. I have a whiteboard where I write things. And I just think having those constant reminders, as well as making sure I take time to, relax, sit down on the couch or, read a comic book, go to an arcade, hang out with my friends, to starve off those conniptions.
Okay. So that's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot. I want to go back just for a second.
Yep.
To wanting to direct and coming out of college, having maybe directed or acted is a world of difference between starting a company.
Yeah. So I'm coming out of UNH. My directing resume is approximately 4 scenes and a 45-minute one act that I wrote and directed. So, I'm interviewing with a lot of the local community theaters because, again, I'm like, I want to direct. And I did, I got this, I got a one directing gig that I can talk a little bit more about later, through a mutual friend. It was miserable. It was the worst show I've ever put on, but I learned so much, which is, I think, an important philosophy that I quickly learned the what not to do list is so much more important than the what to do list. But other than that, nobody wants to hire somebody with, 4 scenes and a one act on their resume. So I'm like, well, I think it's, I'm 23. I just think, no one's taking me seriously because, I'm this kind of energetic, young, fresh faced guy. What do they know? I've got, I don't have a ton of like references outside of my college professors or whatnot. So I'm like, you know what? And I was really inspired by Mike O'Malley from Nashua. You might know him as he was on the sitcom Yes Dear, and he was the host of Nickelodeon's Guts. Now he's a showrunner for a show on Showtime, and so he's like UNH's like star alumni, the most successful person to come out of the theater department there. But the department was putting on a show he wrote. And he came and did a talk back with the theater department about, what it's like trying to get your foot in the door in the entertainment industry. And one thing that he really stressed, as well as my professors were stressing, was like, you got to create your own opportunities. You've got to create your own work when nobody else is hiring you, because that's how you prove to people you're serious. And when you build up that repertoire, that, show that you can go like, okay, I went and, proved my worth, that's when people will start paying attention. So from that, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna self-produce something. So this was maybe in, November. I had just finished up lighting designing. I went back to UNH because I owed a friend a favor. So I lighting designed her production of Taming of the Shrew. And I was driving from Manchester to Durham, and I'm like, what's next? So this is, again, beginning in November, and I'm like, okay, my birthday is in July. So I said, before I turn 24, I want to self-produce a night of original one acts. Because, again, some of that was, I was really into, again, creating opportunities, but also it's a lot cheaper to produce original work than it is to produce licensed work. Mm-hmm. So from there, I'm like, okay, that's my goal. Before the end of July, I need to produce a night of one acts. And then I put a call out on social media. I found one of my fellow UNH alumni who also had a number of plays he had written. We found one thing that I'd written and one thing he had written that I thought complemented each other. We started up a crowdfunding campaign. We raised $3,000. We rented the Derry Opera House for a weekend, and we put on our one acts. I rehearsed in my garage. He rehearsed in his basement. But again, I think, and immediately after that, though, I started the interviews I was doing with the community theater groups in the area were suddenly very different. Because again, they're like, oh, this kid's serious. Oh, this guy, is a young professional and maybe we should give him a chance. So that opened up opportunities, and I immediately got to work with Wyndham Actors Guild and Actor Singers, and the Majestic and all these other groups. But eventually, so like Q0 kind of got put on the back burner. I did self-produce what we did do our first like published show where we did the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged when the Hat Box just opened. We were there, I'm proud to say, in their inaugural season, we were the highest selling show or most tickets per show. Because technically Christmas Carol outsold us, but they had twice as many shows. So we were very successful. But then around, 2016, I was like, I kind of want to go back to Q0. I want to have a little bit more control over my own destiny. I want to be able to, choose the shows I want to direct and work on the shows that I want to work on. Not that I don't really have a love and appreciation for the different community theaters in the area, but a lot of times they pick a show and then they hire out a director. Mm-hmm. Whereas I wanted to do some different kind of stuff. Again, like my big emphasis is on creating opportunities for people, trying to help develop new works, give opportunities to those the younger. I say younger, I mean like, just out of college or even just out of high school that are looking to put some more credits on their resume type things. So we sat down and I came up with our first season, and we produced. Now we've done a number of shows. We do side projects. I mean, when there's not COVID right now, we haven't actually produced anything since last October. We had one of our side projects. So we have like you
guys were doing Proof, weren't you?
Yeah, we did Proof. So our first full season was an original play by a local playwright, again, who was a recent graduate from UNH. Then we did Proof. Then we did Next to Normal, which was our first musical. So that was a whole craziness. Along the way, we have a series we call Guerrilla Shakespeare, where we do we do really goofy, stupid staged readings of Shakespeare in unconventional locations. So like our first one was at the Bookery on Elm Street in Manchester, which is a combination bookstore cafe. We, 9 of us went in there and again, we had permission. It's not like true guerrilla, but again, we're performing in the bookstore and we did A Midsummer Night's Dream. We looked more like the cast of Rent than the cast of Midsummer. Like I had my Superman beanie on and a flannel and I was Puck. And it was the most, and we just goofed around. I mean, even when we do the tragedies, like we did Macbeth on Halloween weekend at the Shaskeen with Nerf swords and a wig head as Macbeth's head at the end, and we had a stuffed animal that played the children. So they're just really goofy, stupid that we have a lot of fun with them. And that was actually our last thing that we really produced. Again, me just kind of looking for one, something fun to do. 2, something not everybody else would do, and 3, something that might grab some people's attention. Last October, we performed Romeo and Juliet in left field of the New Hampshire Fisher Cats baseball stadium, and we themed it Red Sox and Yankees. So like all of the Montagues were wearing Red Sox attire, all the Capulets were wearing Yankees attire. Friar Lawrence was an umpire. No, the Prince was an umpire. Friar Lawrence was like a sports agent. Tybalt was a chest painter and had like one of those big Bam Bam Rubble wiffle ball bats as his sword. We all had, and because COVID was going on, like we leaned into that. So like when Romeo and Juliet went to kiss, we had an alarm go off, and then I read the actual like state guideline that forbids kissing on stage. It was a goofy fun time.
Dude, that's innovative.
Yeah, we were just like, well, like we got nothing else we can do. And I mean, I'd reached out to the Fisher Cats before to just be like, hey, I've got this stupid idea. But then it ended up being like the only theater we got to produce post-COVID because it was outside, it was distant. Like we rehearsed, literally we rehearsed like outside as well. Like I just, I couldn't, all of my normal venues were like, we can't let people in and out. So we just walked down to the Little League fields in Auburn and we rehearsed, next to soccer practice. Because we were outside. It was, it's public space and nobody said anything. A few people stared, but nobody said anything as we're over there And we're learning how to sword fight with wiffle ball bats and working it out. But that, again, we did Guerrilla Shakespeare, unconventional locations.
And I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Where does your fearlessness come from? Where because you look, I've done sales in my life, and just walking up to and to even say, "Oh, we're going to go do something," in the Fisher Cat Stadium.
Yeah,
okay, that's a big idea. That's an idea.
Yeah,
but a lot of people would not even flesh that out. There's a lot of people. Oh yeah, that's funny. You're a cute guy. You went and did it. Somebody went and asked them, and then did it. And the same thing with creating Q0.
Yeah,
you don't have a problem with taking off, getting something and doing it. Where's that come from?
God, I think a number of places. Again, I think some of this also comes back to what I enjoy about directing. I like being able to accomplish things. I'm like, I've got a bit of a competitive nature. I actually grew up more of an athlete than a performer, but unfortunately, when you're 5'6", your sports career doesn't go much further than freshman year of high school. And even then, I blew out my knee on the freshman football team. So, that kind of went away no matter what. It's weird because when you're right, like with these big project things, there is like an element of fearlessness to it. But then there are moments like in real life where I'm like awkward and can't talk to people and be like, no, I don't want to inconvenience them.
You're not afraid to get out of your comfortable zone.
Oh yeah.
One of the reasons why we have factories where people go in and every day they do the mundane stuff, it doesn't ever push them out of their zones. They make widgets all day long, 8 hours a day, and they're happy to do it.
Yeah.
You're not in the widget factory.
No. I'd like to be challenged. I want something that's going to challenge me as a person and artistically, because I like to be able to go, look at that thing. I did something, it's not quite Sir Edmund Hillary looking at Everest and going, I climbed it because it was there. I try to set goals because, I want to, I can't see anything but being successful. I want to hold myself to standards. And actually, there's this longer quote from an artist I like that talks about, you can never be a true success in life if you fear failure. And if you, let failure get in your way, because sometimes, and going back to that first show I directed, he says, failing sometimes half the fun. You learn, you lick your wounds, you get up and you go, okay, that sucked, but I'm so much smarter than I was, and I'm more dangerous than I was, and now I know, what I can do better. And I just find that, like the comfort zone, I don't know who originally said it, but I usually say, the comfort zone is where art goes to die. When you're just doing what makes you comfortable, you churn out, like you said, factory theater.
Yeah.
There's some very successful theaters in the area, I'm sure all over the country, that essentially produce the same shows 6 times a year,
right?
Because they have their formula down. I don't get fulfillment for that. I get fulfillment from being able to go, I've never done that before. What? Let's try that. I'm trying to avoid ever directing a show twice. I'm always trying to work with new people. It's because it's that challenge to me that makes theater interesting, and being able to go, all right, I did that thing I've never done before. That's cool. What else can I do? Like where's the challenge? The challenge is the fun thing. I like like my sister and I can no longer play Monopoly together because we're too competitive and we get like very in each other's faces and whatnot. Because there is that competitive spirit to be able to be like, I did that thing. Nobody else could do it. You didn't think I could do it. So maybe there's a chip on my shoulder, but it's just how I see what makes me feel alive is.
How did you not become a drug addict during the COVID stuff? Because
I don't drink and I don't smoke. I don't do any drug. I mean, I do my anti-anxiety.
How are you not depressed? With your kind of
I mean, for a while it was chocolate cake, but then I put on 50 pounds and that wasn't fun. So now I do yoga and I'm trying to get back in shape. But, again, like theater's my drug. Working with actors is my drug.
Yeah, COVID must have been brutal on you.
Yeah, no. And then again, and it's, taking that time to, sit in the bathtub and do nothing for an hour and just stare at the wall. Or again, read a comic book or throw on mindless, sit down and watch a mindless action movie. Lots of Michael Bay explosions or something just to kind of get out there.
Fill that gap. Yeah.
But then I think also some of it just comes from, again, when I'm not doing anything is when I am like most uncomfortable. Like my students kind of like make fun of me because like as a teacher, I have fidget toys in my hands while I'm lecturing. I have this little like chain thing and I'm always like playing with something, but I'm like, I need to be doing things. And when I'm not is when I'm like uncomfortable. Not that I don't like, sitting and relaxing sometimes, but, in the right environment. Like I love camping. Like I like silences when I'm in the woods. If I'm like inside and things are silent, somebody's sneaking up on me.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So I noticed that Q0 won New Hampshire's best. I saw that award.
Yeah. We 2019 we got an Editor's Choice Best New Theater because they so the people at it technically wasn't like one of their competitive awards like Best Performance Venue or something like that. The editors at the magazine go and try to recognize within each category some unique things or things that they really think stand out and need recognition. So they recognized us as Best New Theater, meaning because our emphasis is always on doing something new every time and challenging ourselves. And they, found that to be really inspirational. So they wanted to recognize us to try to, help us, which I was very grateful for that they, gave us an opportunity to, and then we got to go to the big event and network with all the other winners and things like that. So, it's good to be recognized. I don't do it for the awards, but they do, they look nice on the resume is usually what I what I say.
Yeah, no, it does. What do you think so far has been your best accomplishment as I'm going to put all Q0 and everything else you do all in one bucket. Of all those things, what are you the most proud of at this point?
Yeah, sure. I am really proud of a lot of the work Q0 has done. Just the fact that we started with a show I wrote that maybe 50 people came to see. And now, we sell tickets and, it's community theater. So most of the audience are friends and family, but, maybe 20 to 30% of our audience for our last couple of shows, nobody in the cast or crew knew who some of our 20% of our audience was to me. And that's like, okay, we're doing something right.
Yeah.
And people have heard of us. But I think one of my proudest accomplishments, it actually has nothing to do with Q0. It has to do with, I run the drama club at Central High School as well as at the charter school I run. And when I came into that, that was also something that I kind of fell into. I took a directing job because it was a directing job and I needed a directing job. And when I came in, it was all student run and they all had a lot of heart, but they were the Mighty Ducks, like the first movie. The first, they meant really well, but they had no idea what they were doing. They didn't have a lot of guidance. And they were honestly, talking to some of my friends who went to Central. They're like, oh, we never did shows with the drama club at Central because they're bad, And so there was maybe like 15 kids and it was all the kids that couldn't afford or didn't want to go do shows at the Palace or the Majestic or Peacock or something like that, but still wanted to do theater. And in the 6 years that I've run that program, it's gone from 10 to 15 kids putting on some shows that nobody came to see to there's 45 kids now involved with it. And for the last 3 times they've performed at the school pep rallies when they do a number from the musical, my kids tell me they're the only thing that doesn't get booed.
Oh,
they get
that's good
applause.
news. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the first time we were doing the Wedding Singer. So they were going to perform the opening number as like a advertisement thing. And they were pants crappingly nervous the day before. They're like, oh God, we have to perform it. Because, normally they're performing and it's mostly friends, family, teachers, things like that. So like, we're performing in front of the whole school. Teenagers are brutal. The pep rallies are always people yelling things because all of the acts are terrible. And then they come in the next day and I've never seen them happier. They're like, we got a standing ovation. Everything else got booed or was met with silence, and we got a standing ovation from the student body.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge to their egos.
Yeah. So the fact that I was able to, work with this group, and just by really, again, like kind of, at first there were me butting heads with some of the upperclassmen that had the toxic phrase of, well, this is how we've always done it, and very in their way. But just by, having these standards and really treating them with really emphasizing professionalism, treating them like they're adults, but again, recognizing the limitations of them being students. And again, we're doing it. I've had students from other high schools that have like a budget and all of these things, and they come see the shows at Central and they're like, I want to be in your shows because, you're not hiding behind, $1,000 costume budgets or big giant sets. Your actors are putting on good performances and they look like they're actually enjoying themselves. Although, I do always tell my kids that if the first words out of your mom's mouth are, it looked like you guys had so much fun up there, it means she didn't and the show was terrible. So we shoot for not that. Again, I grew up an athlete. And my dad was, for a number of years, vice president of softball for Little League, because my sister played softball all through high school and college. And he doesn't remember saying this, but I remember it very, very fondly, that he said as his mantra was, the only reason we're here is to have fun. But there's nothing more fun than winning. And I think that's kind of part of it, right?
Yeah,
so it's like, if we're in rehearsals and we're miserable, we've done something wrong. But, if we get to the end of the show and we had a ton of fun in rehearsals, but the show is garbage, we also did something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we want to have a good time, but ultimately be working towards putting on the best show possible. And I always say every show I work on has to be the best show I've ever done. It has to. So whatever we did last time, we can't rest on our laurels. We need to go we need to go deeper with our character analysis. We need to raise more money and have better costumes, or have, again, being truthful to the show, but again, just going that extra mile so that every time we're always building and building and building, and then ultimately being happy with whatever we put out there. I do always spend opening night making what I call my 1 day, 1 week list, where it's like, if I had one more rehearsal, what would I have done? If I had one more week of rehearsals, what would I have done? And then I can take that into my next process and really evaluate, what did I do that wasted time, or what did I miss, and things like that. And then I try to enjoy the show. But again, I'm just there going like, that entrance was late, that line with, it's a miserable happiness.
Yeah. I saw that Q0 seems to be pretty big on new works.
Yeah.
So how's that going? You put out a call a little while ago for new material.
Yeah.
What's the response been, and how do you like all that?
So we're just trying to start back up, because again, it was a big part. We've done, our original show was new work. In our first full produced season, we had an original play, and we've done some, again, our side projects. We've done some readings of new works and gotten feedback. That was one of the things we did with Jupiter Hall, which unfortunately right now is still closed because of COVID. But we'd go in there on a Saturday and just be like, by donation, we're reading a play by a playwright from Manchester. Come check it out. People would come, give some feedback. We also, again, killed by COVID, we had a playwrights group. So every third Sunday of the month, we met at Jupiter Hall for 2 hours, and anybody that wanted to come was welcome to bring 10 to 15 pages of something they were working on. We'd read it in the circle and then, talk about it. And actually from that, one of the pieces we got from that, it was about this like alternate, like post-depression 1930s 1940s kind of radio station host. It was kind of like, what if there was talk radio during the Depression? It was kind of the crux. And I'm like, this is really good, but I'm not sure how well it will stage. But what if we did it as like an audio drama and like a podcast or something like that? So we're actually currently working on, the writer is kind of soliciting some performers, and we're going to hopefully, do the whole script, but like as a decently produced like radio play rather than, because I'm like most of the action takes place in the radio station, but there are some other things. So I thought, I'm like, so if we did some like effects where like when they're on the radio station, we make everything sound more tinny, because again, it's like the 30s. But then when they're talking normal, we don't do any effects, and then you can have this back and forth, because it's kind of like there's like this social activist character that really goes after the big titan of industry that is screwing people during the Depression and bringing in illegal immigrant labor and then not paying them and shipping them back once the project's done and things like that. So again, like we've brought a lot of that. And then as part of our, so we have a Patreon for our membership program. And one of the things we do on there, at least we were for a while, again, it's kind of, with COVID, it's dried up a little. I'm hoping to get it back. But some of the new work we solicit, we have a new works blog where I just post a scene somebody's written every once a week. And, some of our members give feedback, but then at least, the material's getting read. New work is a dangerous thing. There's a lot of people that think they're playwrights, that send me works, and I, make two piles. I've got, like has potential or thanks for your email.
Have you collaborated with folks like Donald Tongue or the New Hampshire playwright?
Yeah, I've connected with them a little bit. Haven't had opportunities to like co-produce anything yet, but I'm always open to collaboration. But yeah, it's sometimes I'm sending some feedback, and usually people are responsive to go like, oh yeah. And again, I don't want to like pretend that like I'm the expert on anything, but there's definitely a lot of talent in the area, and a lot of people that again are like that don't want to take the risk of going out and self-producing, or there just aren't other groups that are doing original work and things like that. So, again, I want to give opportunities to people that want to do something that maybe is a little off the beaten path. Again, not that we're necessarily just trying to be the let's do all the weird shows group or something like that, but
yeah, right.
Just being able to, again, say like, hey, come watch the world premiere of a play. And like, I try to do like, at least with like our last new works that we did a full production of, we didn't just produce the script as it was written. The playwright brought it in as this, like, I want to say it was maybe 25 pages at the first rehearsal, and we doubled it in length. We actually took it from this, 30-minute one act into like an 85-minute two act, and things like that through different, through working with the actors and getting their feedback and doing some improvisational techniques, and then just discussing it, recording the audio and really breaking down what's working and where could this story go and things like that. And it's just really, again, fulfilling to be able, and it gives the actors a lot of ownership too, when, they have some say. And that's something I've done with my high schoolers a number of times, where we start more with like a concept, and then we develop that. Like the show, because of COVID, it was really tricky to figure out what we could do for a show with the school I teach at now. So what we ended up doing was, I had like a general audition just to kind of get a sense of my talent base, because this is my first year at this school teaching full time. And then we were doing some improv exercises, and from that, we realized that the kids had a really good understanding of Romeo and Juliet, and they had a really good understanding of Alice in Wonderland. So I decided, okay, we're going to mash these up. What happens if Romeo ends up in Wonderland? So we created Romeo and Alice in Wonderland. And it was this very, goofy, farcical mashup where at the beginning, the play started with the Romeo getting ready for the balcony scene. And as he says, what light through yonder window breaks, it 'tis the east, he falls down a rabbit hole. And he ends up in Wonderland as the Queen of Hearts is sentencing Alice to be beheaded. and he inadvertently rescues Alice and she falls in love with him. And then Juliet shows up in Wonderland. And then Mercutio and Benvolio show up in Wonderland. And then Tybalt shows up in Wonderland. And chaos ensued. And because it was a Romeo and Juliet parody, by the end of the play, everybody was dead. Because I'm like, I can't put Romeo and Juliet on stage and let them live.
But that is so necessary for those creative juices to flow for those students.
Yeah.
That is so important at that age so they can get into that mode of
Oh yeah, they love it. Like, so what we did, like we auditioned the characters, we assigned the characters, I like outlined the plot, and then it'd be like, okay, we're just going to kind of mess around and ad-lib this. So this is the scene where Romeo's interrupting Alice being beheaded. I turned on my microphone. Is it, Romeo wants this, Alice wants that, the Queen wants this, maybe some other people will throw some things in, go. And I let the scene run for maybe, 2 minutes longer than it should have. But then we, listen to the audio back and go like, okay, like 10% of this worked. Here's what didn't work. We missed this. Let's try this. And we do it again. We do it like 4 or 5 times. And then I'd take the recordings home. I'd listen to them all. And then I'd sit down and hammer out the script and come in the next day and we'd rehearse that scene and go, okay, that works. Now let's do the next scene. And then the next scene. So, again, the kids create this sense of ownership. It's like maybe like, the end product was maybe 35% what they gave me, 65% me, filling in the gaps and whatnot. But again, we created something from nothing essentially. And the kids want to continue it. They're like, hey, can we like write even more and turn it into a musical? I'm like, yeah, go do it on your time. But that's the goal. You have unleashed them. That is wonderful. Yeah.
They come out of their self-consciousness, and they're learning improv and thinking and brainstorming. Dude, that is brilliant. Brilliant.
Oh, I love creating like that. I want to work. I wish I could create more pieces like that with adults, with like trained actors, doing a little bit more devised theater that, not so devised theater that's going to create some more avant-garde pieces. I want to kind of do some devised theater that's going to create like a more grounded theater, but again, letting the actors create these roles, create these relationships, and working with them. So like, it's kind of an ensemble-y created thing. I don't know if and when I'll ever have that opportunity to do it with, again, actors that might have a little bit more, either a lot of improv experience or Meisner work or things like that, that will have a lot of instincts and whatnot. Cause I think there's some good room to create, original work that way, rather than I sit down, write a script, the actors perform it, then I go back and write another draft or something like that. Being able to create with this and really get things from the actor's perspective.
Well, that's a decent segue. I wanted to, I wanted to hit on 2 more points. One is I saw your upcoming audition call for Heathers.
Yes.
So that's a fall show for you?
Yeah, so Heathers was supposed to be this past October. We got a week into rehearsals and then realized, this isn't going to work. Because, again, with all the COVID restrictions and being able to have, rehearsal space and all those things, so we're like, okay, we have to postpone. So it's going to be this fall. We've lost maybe half the cast. So we have, probably, I think we were doing the show with like 20, and I think we've got like 10 or 11 openings now. But it's a show that
production, or is this community theater production?
This is through Q0. It's going. I specifically said everybody had to be at least 18 and have graduated high school, because I really feel that the material needs a little bit of an objectivity to be able to effectively kind of comment on the high school experience. Mm-hmm. Whereas I find with like a lot of young people, if they are in high school, they might get a little too like, this needs to be exactly like my experience or something like that. I've really enjoyed the music. It's, this dark and gritty, and we're kind of really leaning into the dark and gritty. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do it a little bit more leaning into almost an expressionistic look at it. Like I really want to bring out the grotesque in this warped sense of reality that the main character Veronica has. So we were looking at a lot of early expressionistic films when we were looking at like trying to come up with the set. So like the very distorted lockers, because like in the opening number, Veronica describes her world as like hell and the Thunderdome and this Mad Max. So I'm like, without really making everybody a road warrior, I still want to have this sense of this ugly, grotesque world, because I kind of want it to be through how Veronica perceives it. Mm-hmm. So everything is not necessarily as it is, but it's as how she responds to it. So she quite literally sees Heather Chandler as a demon queen. Am I going to put horns on her and whatnot? No, but I want there to be evocative imagery of this powerful demon. So there's, and it's finding that fine line, because you got to keep a lot of that sincerity with the show, or it doesn't work if you just make it too campy. Yeah. But still bringing out the ugliness and then letting the light shine through. Because I do think at the end there's a hopeful message at the end that again. But working with high schoolers, when you talk to a 17-year-old, they think everything that is happening right now is the most important day of their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, again, really trying to bring out that experience where you just can't comprehend that, in 10 years, no one's going to care about your SAT scores. Hell, in 6 months, no one's going to care about your SAT scores. No one's going to care about your superlative in the yearbook. Mm-hmm. Who you went to, how pretty you were at prom isn't going to matter.
I was pretty at prom. Didn't matter.
Well, if that's your shining accomplishment, I'm not going to take that away. But when you're in high school, you're like, this is the most important moment, because it's, again, your brain is in this point where you finally can form your own complex thoughts, and you start seeing the world differently than you did when you were a child. And it's during that transition that you really struggle with identity, and again, just that you start feeling the weight of existing. But because, you've only existed for a fraction of your life, you assume that every day in high school is going to be the most important thing. And so really trying to bring out just the weight of that from the high schooler's perspective, while not shying away from the dark comedy. I'm excited to get to work on it.
Where would you stage this? You don't have a home theater, right?
Oh yeah, no, we're nomadic. So we will be performing at the Derry Opera House. Yeah. So we've got that rented out. Now we're kind of settling in, now that I've got this, my job at Granite State Arts Academy. My classroom is a 140 seat black box theater. So we're going to start producing things there during like school vacations. So like there's, February and April vacation weeks when the students are gone, I'm going to bring in Q0, and then we'll also use my classroom for rehearsals. The school's totally on board with it because it's free advertising for them when I'm bringing in audience members that might not even know where the school is. I'm hoping I can start, Heather's might be a little bit of a challenge, but with some of the other shows, try to maybe bring on some of my upperclassmen as like interns or something, so they can get experience working on a show that isn't, with their peers and whatnot, to try to, again, just create those opportunities. So, right now, kind of the Derry Opera House and Granite State Arts Academy are kind of probably going to become our base of operations. But, I kind of just say I'll go wherever the road of life takes me. If there's a really good opportunity at the Hat Box, I'll produce at the Hat Box again. If for some crazy reason, somebody wants me to direct or produce at their space and I think it's a good opportunity, of course I'll take it. I don't want to pigeonhole myself or nail down something again.
No, you don't seem to be the pigeonhole kind of guy.
No, it's about seizing opportunities and going with the flow, trying to just be, wherever the road of life takes me is where I'll be.
So besides all of this that you've got going, your teaching and your theater and your creativity and your playwriting stuff, I noticed you even have a podcast.
Yeah.
Q0 Theater Cast or something.
Yeah. So that, again, started off just kind of as something to do. Again, we've been with COVID. Eventually it became depressing to talk about theater when theater wasn't going on. So it's kind of on hold till this summer. But originally we started with kind of just a lot of get to know you pieces with our cast members. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I find with theater, I'll frame it this way, and I promise this makes sense. So I'm a big professional wrestling fan.
Okay.
And to me, professional wrestling is the mashup of comic books and musical theater.
All right.
And in wrestling, when you look at like the business side of it, they always say like, what's the draw? Who's the draw? Like Hulk Hogan was the biggest draw of the 80s. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the biggest draw of the 90s. Basically, what is putting butts in seats? And with theater, I think you have to sometimes look at it the same way. And to me, the number one thing from theater and all of the different things I've experienced, I've learned that people want to be challenged a little bit, but for the most part, they want to be comfortable, which is why every year, every theater does Christmas Carol, or you always have to throw in an Annie or a Grease, because you need that comfort thing that's going to get people in the door. And if you don't have that comfort thing, you need something else that's going to make them comfortable. So if they don't know the show, you need the actor they've heard of. That's why we'll go see a new Hollywood movie, but we might not go see a new play if we don't know anyone. It's like, I always enjoy Will Smith's movies. I'm going to go see the new Will Smith movie because he's the draw. Right. And, so if you don't, I always enjoy movies directed by Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg is the draw. So when it comes to theater, with the community, a lot of times it is friends and families. And if you have a lesser known show, it's a little harder to sell tickets. So I wanted to kind of create with the get to know the actors piece, let everyone know the actors. They go, oh, this person sounds interesting. Oh, this show sounds interesting. I'll come listen to it. And then in between, we would just kind of talk different opinions on theater things, like what makes a good director? What do we hate seeing at auditions? Doing a number of opinion pieces. And I think it's still kind of figuring itself out. And then when COVID hit and I couldn't produce theater, I just kind of threw it a call. Who wants to talk theater? And we did like this. I Zoomed people. So I got three community theater stage managers and one that had stage managed professionally. And we just talked stage management because I felt not enough people understand what a stage manager does. Yeah. I interviewed a writing team that self-produced, that wrote and produced their own musical. Because I'm like, I've only written plays. I've never written and created an original musical. What was that like? And I interviewed, the book writer, and then I interviewed the songwriter separately, and it was great. I did we did a group where I had 3 different directors. I had David Kay, who is the directing professor at UNH. I had Matt Cahoon with Theater Kapow, and then I had Mike Wood, who directs for a lot of the community theaters in the southern New Hampshire area. So to me, 3 very different levels of directing: academic, semi-professional, and truly community. Just to get those different perspectives on directing and things like that. I talked to a set designer and stuff just because I wanted to kind of give people an idea of just who is creating this art and what is it like. And I wanted to try to make it specifically to New Hampshire. I try to stick to, not that I would turn down like an opportunity to like interview like Lin-Manuel Miranda or something. Yeah. But again, I want it to be relatable to our audiences. Again, let them understand, because I'm sure, Ray, you experienced this. So often people have no idea what the hell we do. Right. When it comes to creating theater. And if I can give a little peek that, again, if my dad hadn't been like, I always have to talk to like my dad and my mom in sports terms to kind of explain what I do during a rehearsal. I have to explain, draw parallels between me and Bill Belichick to be like, it's like you do all this planning and you're doing this stuff, and then they have to go out and do, because they just, it's a hard thing until you experience to really wrap your head around it. So again, but also, I like to talk, and I love to talk about theater. So, just trying to create that. So I'm hoping this summer when we start, getting ready for rehearsals for Heathers and things, that I'll have all of the major cast members for Heathers on there. So our audiences can get to know their stories, as well as having my design team on there. I've wanted to get choreographers on there. That's the one that I've missed. I've had music directors, stage managers, directors, vocal and mental health theater coaching, but I haven't had a choreographers roundtable. So I'd love to sit down and just be like, how do you create dance for a show? Because even I don't, I'm a very psychological director, and sometimes I struggle with stage picture, but to a choreographer, everything is stage picture. So like, just trying to kind of go, how do you go from listening to a song to turning that into a dance and things like that.
Are you working with Andrew Pernard to do that at the Hatbox?
No. So actually Andrew was kind of, back when the Hatbox first opened, they did have like a podcast series they were trying to get, and my schedule never lined up with their schedule. But I did that was how I kind of connected with Andrew, where I was like, I put on Facebook like, hey, I'm thinking of like doing a theater podcast because I need something to do with my downtime, because it was a point where I did have some downtime. And somebody was like, oh, you should get in touch with Andrew Pernard. They're trying to do something with this new theater called the Hatbox. I'm like, what the hell's the Hatbox? And then we met and we talked for a while. And we, again, originally it was going to be part of that, but between my schedule not working out, and then they had some things, and they eventually did, unfortunately, suspend their podcast thing. But, from that, I was like, all right, I could do this. So like I took, it kind of spun out of that. I mean, and again, I love everything the Hatbox is doing. Cause again, they're also creating opportunities for people that might not, they try to pick a good variety of different types of shows. They've got all different producers in there. And it's also a very unique space that allows for different things. Not every show needs to be in a 1,000-seat, 500-seat proscenium style theater. Some shows work better 99 seats with the audience right up on the.
I agree. Actually, I almost prefer performing in that type of venue.
Yeah, there's I definitely say pros and cons, and I wouldn't want to put every show in the Hatbox. Like actually, for a bit we were considering pitching Heathers to the Hatbox, but I do think it's going to work, at least the way I want to do the show will work better at the Opera House. And also, with live musicians and things like that, there's a little bit of space limitations with that at the Hatbox. Like, cause
dude, they did 1776 there.
Yeah, no, they've
done
some things, and they've done incredible work. It's just, like, I love, like, I couldn't picture us doing our production of Next to Normal anywhere else. It ended up being so integral to the space, and being able to go in and out. And what I love about a space that, and I tell the actors, I'm like, you can't hide and you can't fake anything. You're in the middle, character's having a mental breakdown, and the furthest away an audience member is 7 feet. You've got to be as truthful as you've ever been. This isn't, the couple of schmucks that think the front row is good seats at the Palace, because they're wrong. All you can see is ankles. And then most of your audience is in the balcony. Yeah. So, if you're, if you do have to hide a little moment, or you do lose your concentration for a second, a lot of times it can, you can get away with it.
Dude, they're looking at your soul in the Hatbox.
Yeah. When you're in a space, with the same square footage as my condo. Yeah. You can't hide from that. They're there, and they're gonna. So you've got to be so much more invested and real.
Yeah. All right, brother. I have taken up a lot of your time here. Is there anything that you wanted to bring up and talk about?
No, I appreciate the time to chat. When theater does start to come back, I highly encourage people. Please, I know, especially if you're vaccinated, the theater community is dying to get performing again. Go see shows, and please step outside your comfort zone every now and then. Not that there's anything wrong with your comfort food shows, but, take a risk on something.
Yeah, stop punching out widgets and go do something innovative.
Take something new. And, it might be bad, but, for most places around here, what are you paying? $20?
Yeah.
For a ticket? Worst case scenario, you leave at intermission and you go to the bar early. Yeah. Best case scenario, you just help support a local artist that's struggling, and you took in a really cool new piece of theater.
Dude, and even bad theater has some redeeming quality.
I could do a whole podcast on the joys of bad theater. The funniest show I've ever seen on Broadway. The last time I was in New York, we got $15 second row seats to the play That Goes Wrong.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I literally laughed till my face hurt, and that was just at intermission. Like, I spent all of intermission massaging my jaw because I was in physical pain from
I'm
laughing.
so jealous. I've heard great things about
Oh,
it.
it was total pure luck. We were in New York to see Book of Mormon and Anastasia, and we were walking down the street and we saw that, during the one slot we didn't have a show to see. They had a show. We walked in. We're like, hey, how much are Rush tickets? They're like, well, we got a couple left and they're yours for $15 each.
Oh my God.
Second row. I got spat on by an actor.
Oh my.
There's a part where an actor does like a spit take with his drink. I got wet. That's how close we were to the audience.
$15.
$15, Broadway. Because again, I always tell people, I'm like, if you go to New York, get your tickets beforehand for like the show you really want to see, and then either just go to TKTS or wake up early and stand outside the theater. That's how I got to see. I got obstructed view seats to Glass Menagerie with Cherry Jones and Zachary Quinto for like $30. Because we had tickets to see something else, and I'm like, hey, let's try to catch a matinee because there's 2 shows that day, and we walked down the street and the line for Pippin was longer, so we went to Glass Menagerie.
Wow.
Yeah. So when theater comes back, rushing a show, you can sometimes you can't always do it. Like again, you're not gonna get $15 seats to Hamilton, but the producers would rather have somebody in that seat rather than nobody in that seat. So a lot of the theaters do day of. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's first thing in the morning, or sometimes it's house is open. Okay, any seat left is severely discounted.
Yeah.
So you just got to get lucky.
Yeah. Oh my God. Great tip. Great way to end.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, you have a free night now, so you can. And there you go. Another great one in the tank. That one's going off to the memorial. Have a great day.